I thought I had committed the perfect crime. I left the hotel suite before dawn. I left no note. I didn't even leave my name. It was supposed to be a masquerade. A night where I could be someone else, not Nia Vane, the serious crisis manager, but just a woman captivated by a mysterious stranger with intense eyes and hands that knew exactly how to touch me. When I woke up, panic set in. I'm a professional. I don't do random hookups. So, I ran. I ghosted a billionaire. I thought I was safe. I walked into the biggest meeting of my career 6 hours later. Thorne Dynamics needed a PR miracle, and I was there to sell it. I was confident. I was ready. I walked into that boardroom like I owned it. But when the CEO's chair spun around, my blood turned to ice. It was him, the stranger from the hotel, the man I had left sleeping in that bed. And he wasn't smiling. He didn't fire me. He didn't even yell. He waited until the room cleared, locked the door, and cornered me against the wall. He leaned in close, his voice dark and dangerous, and whispered the one thing I was terrified to hear. "You think you can run, Ms. Vane? Your mind might want to forget last night, but your body remembers me. Now I'm trapped in a contract with the only man who can ruin me. And I think he's enjoying every second of it. You are not going to believe what he made me do to keep my job. Hit that subscribe button right now, because this gets messy. Now, let's dive in." The hallway leading to the executive suite of Thorne Dynamics felt less like a corporate corridor and more like the throat of a beast waiting to swallow her whole. Nia Vane smoothed the lapels of her cream-colored blazer for the 10th time in as many seconds. She caught her reflection in the darkened glass of the elevator bay. She looked perfect. Armor on. Her goddess braids were pulled back into an elegant, sculptural low bun that showcased the sharp line of her jaw. Her makeup was flawless, a shield of neutral tones and a deep plum lip designed to signal authority. No one looking at her would guess that 6 hours ago, she had been tangled in satin sheets, wearing nothing but a black lace mask and the desperate need to forget her ex-fiancé. No one would guess that her legs were still trembling slightly, not from the 4-inch Louboutins, but from the phantom sensation of a stranger's hands gripping her thighs. "Focus, Nia," she commanded herself, tightening her grip on her leather portfolio. "You are the best crisis manager in New York. You fix disasters. You don't become one." The doors to the boardroom loomed ahead, double mahogany slabs with handles made of brushed gold. This was the pitch of a lifetime. Thorne Dynamics, the tech giant that practically ran the venture capital world, had suffered a massive data leak. Their stock was tanking. They needed a facelift, and Nia was the surgeon. She pushed the doors open. The room was freezing. That was the first thing that hit her. A blast of hyper-conditioned air that smelled of espresso and fear. 6 men and 2 women sat around a table long enough to land a plane on. They all looked up as she entered. The tension in the room was palpable, a physical weight pressing down on the lungs. "Ms. Vane," a balding man near the front said, checking his watch. "You're precisely on time. I'm Marcus Sterling, CFO. We've heard interesting things about your methods." "Efficient things, I hope," Nia said, her voice smooth, stepping into the room. She walked with the rhythm of a metronome, calm, steady, inevitable. "We're ready when you are," Sterling said. "Though I should warn you, our CEO is in a mood today." Nia's eyes flicked to the head of the table. The chair, a massive, high-backed executive throne, was turned away from the room. It faced the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the gray Manhattan skyline. All she could see was a sliver of a charcoal suit jacket and a hand resting on the armrest. A dark hand. Large. Strong. A strange shiver, violent and cold, raced down Nia's spine. The hand was tapping a gold fountain pen against the leather armrest. Tap. 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 The rhythm was familiar. "Stop it," she told herself. "You're paranoid. Half the men in this city wear charcoal suits." "I prefer to address the decision-maker directly," Nia said, setting her tablet down on the table. She projected her voice toward the chair. "Mr. Thorne, I'm Nia Vane. I'm here to stop your company from bleeding out." The tapping stopped. The silence that followed stretched for 5 agonizing seconds. The other board members shifted in their seats, looking nervous. Then, slowly, painfully slowly, the chair began to swivel. First, she saw the knees. Long legs clad in immaculately tailored wool. Then the torso, broad and powerful, straining against the vest of a 3-piece suit. And then, the face. Nia's heart didn't just skip a beat. It stopped, withered, and died in her chest. The air left the room. It was him. The mask was gone, but there was no mistaking the architecture of that face. The high, regal cheekbones. The rich, deep complexion that seemed to glow under the harsh boardroom lights, smooth, glossy, and impossibly handsome. The heavy-lidded, predatory eyes that were currently widening in a mixture of shock and dark amusement. And the hair. Last night, she had gripped those long, thick dreadlocks to anchor herself as he drove her into the mattress. Now, they were tied back neatly, though a few rebellious locks framed his face, softening the harshness of his expression not at all. Julian Thorne. The mysterious J from the masquerade. The man who had whispered things in her ear that made her toes curl. The man she had sneaked away from at 4:30 a.m. like a thief in the night. Nia felt the blood drain from her face. She locked her knees, praying they wouldn't buckle. She was going to vomit. She was going to pass out. She was going to die right here on this Persian rug. Julian didn't speak. He just stayed. His gaze started at her eyes, traveled down to her mouth, lingering there for a terrifying second, then swept down her body, noting the cream suit, before snapping back up to her eyes. The shock in his expression morphed into something else. Something harder. He leaned forward, interlacing his fingers on the mahogany table. The movement made the muscles in his shoulders shift under his suit jacket. He looked like a panther that had just found a gazelle foolish enough to walk into its den. "Ms. Vane," he said. His voice was a low rumble, a baritone vibration that she felt in the soles of her feet. It was the same voice that had groaned against her neck last night. "Mr. Thorne," she managed to reply. She was proud that her voice didn't shake, though her insides were liquefying. "I wasn't aware Vane Consulting was handling our account," Julian said, his eyes never leaving hers. He ignored the rest of the board completely. It was as if they were the only two people in the universe. "I was told you were elusive." "He knows," Nia thought. "He knows exactly who I am." "I'm selective," Nia corrected, falling back on her corporate script as a lifeline. "I only take on clients who are ready to do the hard work to survive." Julian's lips quirked up at the corner. It wasn't a nice smile. It was a dangerous one. "Is that so? And are you known for finishing the jobs you start? Or do you have a habit of disappearing before the work is done?" The double entendre hit her like a physical slap. The board members exchanged confused glances. Sterling, the CFO, cleared his throat. "Mr. Thorne, Ms. Vane comes highly recommended. Her strategy for the Whitman crisis was—" "I'm not interested in Whitman," Julian cut him off, his voice sharp as a whip. He kept his eyes pinned on Nia. "I'm interested in Ms. Vane's exit strategy." Nia gripped the edge of the table. Her knuckles were white. He was toying with her. He was going to expose her right here, in front of the most powerful people in tech. She had to take control. "My exit strategy is simple," Nia said, forcing a steely coolness into her tone. "I leave when the client is satisfied. When the mess is cleaned up. Not a moment before." Julian leaned back, crossing his arms over his broad chest. He studied her, his tongue running over his bottom lip in a gesture that made Nia's breath hitch. "When the client is satisfied," he repeated slowly, tasting the word. "Well then, we have a problem, because I am currently very unsatisfied." Heat flooded Nia's cheeks. It was a furious, humiliating blush that she couldn't suppress. "With the company's stock price," Julian added smoothly, addressing the room but smirking at her. Obviously, Nia choked out. "Present your strategy, Ms. Vane," Julian commanded, waving a hand dismissively. "Convince me not to throw you out of this building." "Game on." Nia took a deep breath. She disconnected her brain from her body. She disconnected Nia the woman from Nia the consultant. She turned on her tablet and began the pitch. For 20 minutes, she spoke. She talked about narrative control, about redirecting the media cycle, about transparency and rebuilding trust. She was brilliant. She was articulate. She was fighting for her life. Every time she looked at the head of the table, Julian was watching her. He wasn't looking at the charts on the screen. He wasn't looking at the projections. He was watching her mouth move. He was watching her hands gesture. He looked angry. But beneath the anger, there was a hunger that terrified her more than his rage. "And that," Nia concluded, her throat dry, "is how we stabilize the stock by Q3. The room was silent. The board members looked impressed. Sterling was nodding enthusiastically. "Excellent," Sterling said. "Truly. I think this is exactly." "Leave us," Julian said. The room froze. "Sir?" Sterling asked. "Everyone out," Julian said, his voice dropping an octave. "I want to discuss the terms of the contract with Ms. Vane. Alone. But the bylaws state that." "Get out." Julian didn't shout. He didn't have to. The authority in his voice was absolute. Chairs scraped against the floor. Papers were shuffled hastily. The board members practically ran for the door, sensing a predator about to feed. They cast pitying glances at Nia as they fled. "Don't leave me," Nia screamed internally. "Please don't leave me alone with him." The heavy double doors clicked shut. The sound echoed like a prison cell locking. They were alone. Nia stood at the foot of the table. Julian sat at the head. 30 feet of mahogany separated them, but it felt like inches. Julian stood up. He unfolded his frame, rising to his full height. He was well over 6'3", a towering wall of muscle and dominance. He unbuttoned his suit jacket and tossed it onto his chair. Then he started walking toward her. He moved with a prowling, silent grace. Nia wanted to back up, but her feet were glued to the floor. She held her ground. She raised her chin. "Mr. Thorne," she began, her voice tight. "If you have questions about the fee structure." "Drop the act, Vane," he growled. He didn't stop until he was standing directly in front of her. He was so close she could smell him, a distinct, intoxicating mix of expensive sandalwood, crisp linen, and the natural, masculine scent of his skin. It brought the memories of the night before rushing back with the force of a tidal wave. "Julian," she whispered, the name slipping out before she could stop it. "So you do know my name," he said, his voice deceptively soft. "Last night, you didn't seem to care." "I didn't know," Nia pleaded, finally taking a step back. Her back hit the cold glass wall of the boardroom. She was trapped. "I swear, I didn't know who you were." "And if you had?" Julian stepped into her personal space, placing one hand on the glass beside her head, boxing her in. "Would you have run away faster? Or would you have stayed to negotiate your contract in bed?" "That is wildly unprofessional," Nia snapped, her anger flaring up to mask her fear. "What happened last night was a mistake. A lapse in judgment." "A mistake?" Julian let out a dry laugh. He leaned down, his face inches from hers. His eyes were dark pools of obsidian, swirling with frustration. "You called it something else when you were screaming my name at 2 a.m. "Stop," Nia hissed, looking at the glass door, terrified someone would walk in. "We are in your office. You are my potential client. We need to forget that happened." "Forget?" Julian looked at her incredulously. He reached out with his free hand. For a second, Nia thought he was going to grab her. Instead, he gently, almost reverently, tucked a loose strand of her braid behind her ear. The touch was electric. Nia gasped, her breath trembling. "I don't forget, Nia," he murmured. His thumb grazed her jawline, tilting her face up to his. "And neither do you." "I have forgotten," she lied. "It was just a night. It's over." Julian's eyes dropped to the pulse points in her neck, watching her heart hammer against her skin. "Is it?" He leaned closer. His lips brushed against the shell of her ear. "You're trembling." "I'm angry," she lied again. "You're scared," he corrected. "You're scared because you walked into this room thinking you were in control, and you realized you belonged to me." "I don't belong to anyone," Nia shoved at his chest. It was like shoving a brick wall. He didn't budge. "I am a consultant. You are a CEO. If you can't be professional, I will walk out that door and decline the account." She tried to duck under his arm to escape. Julian moved faster than she thought possible. His hand clamped around her waist, not painful, but firm, an iron band of possession. He pulled her flush against his body. The contact was explosive. Her soft curves collided with his hard planes. She could feel the heat radiating off him through his shirt. She could feel the rapid thud of his heart matching hers. "You aren't going anywhere," Julian growled, his face hovering above hers. "You created this mess. You left me waking up alone in an empty bed like a fool. You don't get to run twice." "I didn't run," Nia argued weakly, her hands resting on his chest, unsure whether to push him away or pull him closer. "I left early. There's a difference." "You snuck out," he corrected. "Like you were ashamed. Or like you were stealing something." "I was protecting my career, which is currently hanging by a thread because you can't separate business from pleasure." Julian stared at her for a long moment, his breathing heavy. Then, the anger in his eyes shifted into something more calculating. "Fine," he said abruptly. He released her waist and stepped back. Nia stumbled slightly, missing the warmth of his body immediately, which infuriated her. Fine, she asked, wary. Julian walked back to the head of the table. He picked up the contract she had prepared. He pulled his gold pen from his pocket, clicked it, and signed the bottom line with a flourish. He didn't even read it. He walked back and held the paper out to her. You want the job? It's yours. Nia took the paper, her hands shaking. Just like that. Not just like that, Julian said, his voice dropping to a silken threat. I'm adding a clause. What clause? Total accessibility, Julian said. You fix my company's image. You work directly under me. No intermediaries. No Sterling. Just you and me. Late nights. Early mornings. Whatever it takes. Nia swallowed hard. Julian. Mr. Thorne. That is a terrible idea. Take it or leave it, he said cold, turning his back on her to look out the window again. Walk out that door, and your firm loses the biggest contract of the year. Stay, and you answer to me. Nia looked at the contract. It was millions of dollars. It was the promotion she had worked 5 years for. It was everything she wanted professionally. But the price was him. She looked at his broad back, the way the muscles tensed under his shirt. She remembered the taste of his skin. She remembered the way he had looked at her with such raw vulnerability before she had shattered it by running away. I'll take it, she whispered. Julian turned around. The smirk was back. Good choice. He walked to his desk and pressed the intercom button. Send Sterling back in. He looked at Nia one last time, his eyes sweeping over her like he was memoizing her all over again. Welcome to Thorne Dynamics, Ms. Vane, he said, his voice filled with a dark promise. I look forward to seeing if you're as good in the boardroom as you are in the bedroom. Nia's mouth fell open in outrage, but before she could speak, the double doors opened and the board members filed back in. Julian's face instantly smoothed into a mask of professional indifference. He sat down, gesturing for the meeting to resume, leaving Nia standing there, heart racing, face burning, and completely, utterly trapped. Nia's POV. I didn't run out of the boardroom. I walked. I forced every muscle in my legs to cooperate, even though they felt like jelly. I could feel his eyes on my back, hot, heavy, and possessing, until the heavy mahogany doors finally clicked shut behind me. Freedom. Not quite. I was in the hallway, but I wasn't safe. I needed to get to the lobby. I needed fresh air. I needed a tequila shot at 10 a.m. I marched toward the elevators, my heels hitting the marble floor with aggressive speed. I jabbed the down button like it was a panic switch. Come on, I hissed under my breath. Come on. The elevator dinged. The doors slid open. I stepped inside, exhaling a breath I felt like I'd been holding for an hour. I reached out to press the lobby button, but a large hand shot out and stopped the doors from closing. My stomach dropped to my feet. Julian Thorne stepped into the elevator. He wasn't wearing his jacket. He had rolled up the sleeves of his white dress shirt, revealing forearms that looked like they could crush stone. He looked casual, lethal, and entirely too pleased with himself. Going down? He asked, his voice smooth as silk. He stepped in. The doors slid shut, sealing us in a 6x6 metal box. You have a private elevator, I said, my voice tight. Why are you in this one? I like the view, Julian murmured, not looking at the glass wall behind us, but staring directly at me. The elevator lurched downward. The sudden movement made me stumble slightly in my heels. Instinctively, Julian's hand shot out to steady me, gripping my elbow. His touch burned through the fabric of my suit. Don't touch me, I snapped, jerking my arm away. You're jumping at shadows, Nia, Julian said, stepping closer. He backed me into the corner of the elevator, effectively trapping me again. We have a contract. We're partners now. We are service providers, I corrected, hugging my portfolio to my chest like a shield. I provide PR strategy. You provide the check. That is the extent of this partnership. Julian chuckled darkly. He leaned in, resting one hand on the railing beside my hip. The scent of him, sandalwood and danger, filled the small space. Is that what you tell yourself? He whispered. Do you really think I hired you for your press release skills? My heart hammered against my ribs. I am the best in the city. You are, he agreed. But that's not why I wouldn't let you leave. I kept you because I want to know why. Why what? Why you ran? His eyes searched mine, the playfulness gone, replaced by a raw, confusing intensity. I woke up, Nia. I reached for you, and you were gone. No note. No number. Just cold sheets. I told you. I looked away, unable to hold his gaze. It was a mistake. Don't lie to me. His voice dropped to a growl. Was I a mistake? Or was I too much for you? The elevator dinged. We had reached the lobby. The doors slid open to reveal a bustling crowd of employees. Julian instantly stepped back. The mask of the cold, distant CEO slammed back into place before anyone could see the heat between us. He buttoned his cuffs, looking at me with cool indifference. I expect a preliminary report on my desk by 8 a.m. tomorrow, he said loudly, for the benefit of the onlookers. Don't be late, Ms. Vane. He walked out of the elevator without looking back, the sea of employees parting for him like the Red Sea. I stood there for a moment, trembling, staring at his retreating back. I had just signed a deal with the devil. And the worst part, I couldn't wait to see him again. The silence on the 45th floor was heavier than the noise of the city below. It was 10:30 p.m. Nia had been staring at her laptop screen for 6 straight hours, fueled only by lukewarm vending machine coffee and sheer willpower. The numbers on the spreadsheet were starting to blur, but she refused to stop. She wasn't just fighting a PR crisis anymore, she was fighting a turf war. And the enemy was sitting 10 feet away. Julian Thorne hadn't left his desk since they returned from the lobby. He sat behind a massive slab of black marble, illuminated only by the glow of his multiple monitors and the city lights sprawling outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. He had removed his tie. The top 2 buttons of his white shirt were undone, exposing the hollow of his throat. He looked devastatingly relaxed, yet coiled with an intensity that filled the entire room. Nia could feel his eyes on her every few minutes. He wasn't subtle about it. It was a weight on her skin, a constant reminder of the night she was desperately trying to forget. Tap, tap, tap. Her fingers froze over the keyboard. That sound. His gold pen hitting the marble desk. You're grinding your teeth, Ms. Vane. Julian's voice cut through the silence, low and husky from disuse. Nia kept her eyes glued to her screen. I'm concentrating, Mr. Thorne. Something you might try doing instead of watching me. I am multitasking, he replied smoothly. I'm reviewing the Asian market projections, and I'm observing my newest investment. You. Nia snapped her laptop shut a little too hard. She swiveled in her guest chair to face him. I am a consultant, not an investment. And this total accessibility clause. It's bordering on harassment. I can do this work from my own office. Julian stopped tapping the pen. He leaned back, the leather of his chair creaking. But then I wouldn't be able to ensure quality control. My quality is impeccable. Is it? He stood up. Nia's stomach gave an involuntary twitch. He walked around the desk, prowling toward her. You seemed very thorough last night. But today, you seem frantic. Distracted. He stopped right in front of her chair, looming over her. Nia refused to look up at him. She stared pointedly at his expensive leather belt. I'm tired, she said defensively. It's late. It is, he agreed. He reached past her, his arm brushing against her shoulder, and pressed a button on her desk phone. Security. Send up the delivery for Thorne. He clicked off. Food is coming. We eat. Then we finish the press release strategy. I didn't order anything, Nia said. I ordered for you. He walked over to a small seating area by the window, 2 leather armchairs and a low table. Come here. Bring your laptop. It wasn't a request. Nia briefly considered grabbing her bag and running for the elevator again. But the contract burned in her mind. She grabbed her laptop and walked over to the seating area. She sat in one armchair, keeping her posture rigid. Julian sat opposite her, his long legs stretched out, his knees inches from hers. Security arrived moments later with containers from incredible-smelling Thai food. Julian unpacked it. Pad Thai, green curry, spring rolls. Nia's stomach growled loudly. She blushed. Julian smirked. He handed her a pair of chopsticks. Eat. You're useless to me if you pass out from hunger. Such a benevolent overlord, she muttered, taking the food. For the first 10 minutes, they ate in silence. The food was divine, and despite her anxiety, Nia devoured it. The simple act of sharing a late-night meal felt dangerously intimate in the quiet office. It felt too much like what couples did. Tell me, Julian said, breaking the silence. He was watching her eat a spring roll with an intensity that made it hard to swallow. Why crisis management? You seem high-strung for a job that requires calm. I am calm when it counts, Nia said, dabbing her mouth with a napkin. I like taking chaos and turning it into order. I like control. Julian placed his empty container on the table. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his dark eyes locking onto hers. That's interesting, he murmured. Because that's not the woman I met at the masquerade. That woman didn't want control. She wanted to lose it. Nia dropped her chopsticks. They clattered onto the table. Stop it, she whispered. You cannot keep bringing that up here. Why not? It's just us. Because I am trying to do my job. Nia stood up, agitated. She needed distance. She walked toward the window, staring out at the dizzying drop to the street below. You are making this impossible. You're doing this on purpose to rattle me. I am, he admitted calmly from behind her. She heard him stand up. She heard his footsteps approaching. Why? She demanded, turning to face him. He was right there. Too close again. The city lights reflected in his dark eyes. Because I don't like being dismissed, Nia, Julian said, his voice low and rough. I gave you something real last night. Something raw. And you treated it like a transaction you regretted in the morning light. That insults me. It wasn't you, Nia said, her voice shaking. It was me. I was ending a long engagement. I wasn't myself. Julian's eyes narrowed slightly. An ex-fiancé. He took another step closer. Nia's back hit the cold glass of the window. He's an idiot, Julian said flatly. He reached out, his large hand cupping the side of her neck. His thumb traced the line of her jaw, sending shivers down her entire body. The heat of his skin was intoxicating. Nia stopped breathing. Every professional instinct screamed at her to push him away, to slap him, to run. But her body betrayed her. She leaned infinitesimally into his touch. You are magnificent, Nia, he whispered, his gaze dropping to her lips. Smart. Vicious. Beautiful. He leaned down. His breath, warm and scented with spices, ghosted over her mouth. Nia's eyes fluttered closed. He's going to kiss me. Oh God, I want him to kiss me. His lips brushed hers, a feather-light touch that was more agonizing than a full kiss. It was a question. A temptation. Nia's phone, sitting on the small table near her laptop, vibrated violently against the wood. The spell shattered. Nia gasped and jerked her head back, breaking the contact. Her heart was trying to beat out of her chest. Julian didn't move away immediately. He stayed close, his eyes dark with frustration, his breathing slightly heavier than before. He slowly dropped his hand from her neck. Answer it, he said, his voice devoid of emotion now. It's probably Sterling panicking about the Asian markets opening. He turned and walked back to his massive marble desk, buttoning his shirt collar as he went, instantly transforming back into the cold, untouchable CEO. Nia leaned against the window glass, her legs shaking so badly she thought she might fall. She stared at her vibrating phone, then at the man sitting at the desk. She had survived the first night. But she knew, with terrifying certainty, that this was only the beginning of the war. And she was already losing. Phew. That phone call could not have come at a worse time. Are you guys enjoying the story so far? If you are hooked on Nia and Julian's tension and want to see the continuation, make sure to hit that like button and let me know in the comments. Also, we are growing so fast, and I have a huge goal to hit 8,000 subscribers soon. If you want more stories like this, please hit that subscribe button and help us get there. Let's hit 8K together.